Tonight, Brendan Rodgers returns. Celtic have a new manager back 4 years after quitting in controversial circumstances. How do fans feel about his return?
I still have reservations, but I'm a Celtic fan and I'll obviously get behind him.
I know the way he left, a lot of folk didn't like it, but he's welcome back in my eyes.
One of Celtic's greatest ever managers is on his way back to the club. We'll have all the very latest from the home of the Scottish champions.
Also making the headlines, the First Minister unveils his plans for a written constitution for an independent Scotland.
And a murder trial. Here's how friends of a 14-year-old boy heard him call for his mum after he was stabbed on the platform of a Glasgow station.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. After 4 years away, Brendan Rodgers is back at Celtic after making a remarkable return as the club's new manager. The Northern Irishman replaces Ange Postecoglou and signs a 3-year deal with the Scottish champions.
Rodgers previously left the club in controversial circumstances in 2019 after joining Leicester City, much to the anger of many Celtic supporters. But he says it was an easy decision to return. Well, let's go live now to Ronnie Charters, who's at Celtic Park for us tonight. Ronnie.
Yeah, Kellyanne, this really is a seismic appointment by owner Dermot Desmond. He may have left out the back door for the allure of the English Premier League in 2019, but now Brendan Rodgers is once again the Celtic manager. When Ange Postecoglou left, the Celtic board looked once again to one of the most successful managers in the club's history. 7 trophies out of 7 for the Northern Irishman in his first spell in charge. And after his reappointment today, released a statement saying in which he was delighted to be returning to the club, saying it was a very simple decision when he was given the chance. He added his goal again will be to deliver good football and, of course, ultimately bring more success to the supporters. But it's those supporters who have mixed reviews over his return after that controversial exit to Leicester. Let's hear what they had to say today.
I'm quite happy, this year. I think he's definitely the best placed to take us forward with the speed that it happened with Ange leaving.
It'll take a while for some fans to back him. I think after we won the first 6 games and maybe win the derby game, then I think the fans will start to get on behind him.
I know the way he left, a lot of folk didn't like it, but he's welcome back in my eyes.
He didn't leave us in that bad a place. I think we were 8 or 9 points clear in I think it was the quarters of the Cup against Hibs away, so no, it's not a big issue for me, to be honest, no.
I think he's a fantastic manager, he'll do a great job, but obviously what happened before, I still have reservations. But I'm a Celtic fan and I'll obviously get behind him.
Is he going to do that again if a Premier League team comes in, or is he actually going to keep his word and stick for the 3 years?
So those the mixed thoughts, I suppose, for some of the Celtic fans we spoke to, but it was pretty unanimous, it's fair to say, from the Celtic board. Rodgers was the man they wanted to replace Postecoglou, their #1 target, and he has been rewarded with a bumper 3-year contract, making him once again the highest paid manager in the club's history. In his entry for when he arrives in Glasgow's East End, the grandeur of Champions League group stage football and, of course, that domestic treble to defend. In his statement, his final words to the Celtic fans today after his reappointment, a very clear message from Brendan Rodgers and a very simple one. Let's get to work.
All right, from Celtic Park, thanks very much, Ronnie. The First Minister, Humza Yousaf, is unveiling plans for a written constitution for an independent Scotland. It proposes enshrining the right to free healthcare in the NHS and removing nuclear weapons.
It comes as the SNP prepare for an independence convention in Dundee this weekend amid an ongoing police investigation into the party's finances. The opposition say the First Minister's priorities are all wrong. Here's our political editor, Colin Mackay.
It's 3 months since Humza Yousaf took over from Nicola Sturgeon as SNP leader, but her immediate legacy of a police investigation into party finances has loomed large. Yesterday, the former First Minister spoke for the first time of her arrest and release without charge.
I am certain that I have done nothing wrong. I intend to be back in Parliament in the early part of the week. I'll make myself available for questions then.
But her successor is facing questions now, even as he launched plans today for a written constitution in an independent Scotland. Do you think it would help you if she suspended her membership?
Look, there's no pressure on Nicola Sturgeon to have to suspend her membership.
So you don't want her to do that?
There is no pressure, again, and I don't need Nicola Sturgeon to suspend her membership. But we are focused.
Do you want her to?
I don't want Nicola Sturgeon to have to suspend her membership. I don't know how many times you're going to ask me that question in various different guises. But my focus is not on whether Nicola Sturgeon is a member of the SNP or not. My focus is making sure the government focuses on the priority of the people of Scotland. Cost of living crisis, the NHS, growing our wellbeing economy, advancing the case for independence. These are the issues that I and the government are focused on.
On Saturday, Humza Yousaf will make his first big speech as leader to the SNP's Independence Convention in Dundee. It comes after polls suggesting support for the SNP is slipping and that they could even be overtaken by Labour at a general election.
When we have independence, and I've got no doubt in my mind that Scotland will be an independent country, then this gives us a great model of what an independent Scotland's written constitution should be like, what issues it should consider, what vital protections it should embed within that written constitution.
Do you think you're going to be telling your party on Saturday in Dundee that you're the leader that's going to take them to independence?
I genuinely believe I will be the leader that will deliver independence.
The SNP is facing its toughest time in years. Humza Yousaf needs more than a plan for a written constitution. He needs to inspire his party and the voters ahead of a really tough general election.
So, Colin, there's a lot of politics around.
There is. In that speech on Saturday, I think Humza Yousaf is going to pull back from Nicola Sturgeon's plan of trying to turn the next general election into a de facto referendum. I think what he's going to say is that he wants to use that election to try and boost support for another independence referendum. But Nicola Sturgeon tried that in 2017. It kind of backfired when the SNP actually lost seats. She's expected back in Parliament either tomorrow or Wednesday. And over the weekend there, footage of the Conservative Party staffers partying during lockdown emerged, and in the Commons right now MPs are debating the report which found Boris Johnson guilty of misleading Parliament multiple times over Partygate.
The committee's report found that Mr Johnson deliberately misled the House and the committee, and in doing so committed a serious contempt. It also found that Mr Johnson breached confidence, undermined the democratic process of this House, and was complicit in a campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of the committee.
When stories or scandals like this one cut through with the public, it offers a Prime Minister the chance to press the reset button, to show leadership, get to grips with an issue, tackle it head on. But this Prime Minister is simply too weak to do so.
It really was one rule for them, another rule for us. And since its publication, we've seen some clips reveal the unbelievable arrogance of those posing for photos and being filmed dancing at Tory HQ, apparently on a day when it was announced London was entering Tier 3 restrictions, and then rewarding some of those taking part with honours. People died alone while number 10 officials had Friday wine time.
And the Prime Minister is not going to take part in this debate. I wouldn't expect the Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack to take part either, because he was a big pal of Boris Johnson's. In fact, there's a fair chance that there won't even be a vote at the end of this debate. I'll tell you where there will be a vote, though, in the by-election, because Boris Johnson has resigned. In fact, the Conservatives are now facing 4 by-elections down south following in the wake of the whole Partygate report. Proper tests of public reaction. They're going to be big tests before the general election.
Colin, thank you. Well, as you heard in Colin's report, Labour could be on the up, and it's certainly the party vying to take over number 10 at the next general election. If it does, Labour says it will end new North Sea oil and gas exploration and create a publicly owned energy company with its headquarters here in Scotland.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer was in Edinburgh this morning to set out the party's green energy strategy. Well, our political reporter Laura Alderman was in Leith this morning for that speech, and she joins us now from the Firth of Forth. Laura.
Well, where I'm standing tonight encapsulates that transition to green energy. Just behind me here is the site of the former Cockenzie power station. That was demolished a couple of years ago and will now be replaced by an onshore substation to boost wind energy. As you can see, there's plenty of that out here. Now, when he was unveiling his plans this morning, Sir Keir Starmer vowed to cut bills, create jobs and provide energy security. And one key part of that plan was an end to new licences drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. Now, today, unions have reacted angrily to that, saying it's reckless and saying it could put at risk the 200,000 jobs in that sector. I also asked the Labour leader how he thinks his party would fare if there was indeed a by-election in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. That's the seat currently held by former SNP MP Margaret Ferrier, who, as we know, is now suspended from the Commons for breaching lockdown regulations in 2020. A recall petition opens tomorrow. That could trigger a by-election. She could be ousted from her seat, and it could be a key strategic target for Labour. If you don't win that seat, that would be nothing short of disastrous for the party, wouldn't it?
Well, look, I'm very glad you're putting that challenge to me, because I think it shows the progress we've made here in Scotland. But whether it's Rutherglen or anywhere else, I'm absolutely clear that we've got to earn every vote. And yes, I think people are getting disillusioned with the SNP. You can see it, imploding. And I think the more people look at the record of the SNP, the more they can see it hasn't delivered. But we have to earn those votes. So we've got a good, strong team. I've been up there with the team. They're very enthusiastic about an oncoming by-election. We want it to happen. We say bring it on. But I'm humble about this. We've got to earn every vote.
And Laura, things are looking better for Labour.
Yes, polls out over the weekend predict that Labour could trounce the SNP at the next election, picking up 26 seats. But of course, polls are just that, polls, and they vary wildly. One final thing to add about Sir Keir Starmer's speech this morning was that journalists attending the event in Leith were promised they could be escorted by a hydrogen bus to take them to the event. When they arrived, however, it was indeed a diesel bus that would be taking them there. Something out with the Labour leader's control, of course, but perhaps just displays how difficult the transition to green energy could be.
All right, Laura, thanks very much.
To other stories, and reports of online child abuse have increased in Scotland, and nearly 2,000 offences were recorded here in 2022-23. That's an increase of more than 6.5% in the 5-year average. Police Scotland say 486 arrests were made.
The ASLEF Train Drivers Union has announced that members at 16 different rail operators will refuse to work overtime for 6 days in July. The action, taking place from the 3rd of July, will hit services on cross-border trains as part of an ongoing national dispute over pay.
Islanders on Iona and Mull have written to the Scottish Government's new Transport Minister demanding compensation amid ongoing problems with CalMac's ageing ferry fleet. The toll Fiona Hislop economic damage has gone into 6 figures. Transport Scotland says it fully recognises the need to improve reliability and confidence in services.
And the charity MND Scotland has announced an historic £2 million investment in the UK's biggest ever clinical drug trial for motor neuron disease. The new trial is designed to speed up the search for effective medicines that can stop, slow or reverse the progression of MND.
A senior manager at a children's hospital where water was found to be infected said he would have preferred a more proactive approach to informing families of crucial developments, but claimed the culture was nothing but transparent.
Jamie Redfern has been given evidence at the Scottish Hospitals Inquiry. He was the General Manager of Acute Paediatrics and Neonatology at NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde in 2018. Susan Ripple reports.
In September 2018, the families and patients being treated at the Royal Hospital for Children were told they'd be moved to the adult hospital. It was happening to try and prevent further infection after water in the Schahalian ward was found to be contaminated. Today, a senior manager at the time said he was unhappy the media were told about it first.
Can you remember how they felt about that?
Not good. I'd much rather have had a proactive approach, being able to deal face-to-face with any parent or family around the circumstances being faced.
Another media statement also spoke about precautionary antibiotic treatment for patients at the time, but that information was not included in a briefing for patients.
I never ever felt that there was a lack of transparency. I never ever felt that, and I would never ever have allowed that to happen personally from myself. I always felt that everyone spoke truthfully, honestly, articulately, as much as they possibly could on the circumstances at that specific time.
He told the inquiry he understood why families were frustrated.
It was a horrible set of circumstances that they were dealing with in terms of the precautions that had been put in place. Whether it transpired that we were shown a lack of transparency, I can't formally remember that, but I do remember there being general unhappiness about the whole thing. Yeah, and quite rightly, it was not a good set of circumstances to be in.
The inquiry continues tomorrow. Susan Ripple, STV News, Glasgow.
The friends of a schoolboy who was allegedly stabbed to death on the platform of a Glasgow railway station heard him call for his mum as he was waiting for an ambulance. Daniel Haig is on trial for the murder of Justin McLaughlin, who died in October 2021. The 18-year-old denies murder, but it has been agreed between prosecutors and his legal team that he delivered the blow which caused Justin's death. Courtney Cameron was in court.
14-year-old Justin McLaughlin caught a train into Glasgow with his friends to go to McDonald's like any other Saturday afternoon. But on the 16th of October 2021, he didn't come home. Jurors at the High Court in Glasgow have heard he was allegedly stabbed to death by 18-year-old Daniel Haig at High Street Railway Station following a fight. Today, the court heard pre-recorded police interviews from a group of Justin's friends who had been with him on the day of the incident. One 14-year-old girl told the police officer she was petrified. She said she remembered Justin grabbing where he had been stabbed and saying, "They've got me," before falling to the floor. She said her friends were crying and none of them could look at Justin because they couldn't bear to see their best pal like that. Justin's family wept in the courtroom as the girl recalled him repeatedly saying, "I need my mum," before he was taken to hospital. Justin's friends told officers that the fight had broken out over schemy stuff. One witness said Haig and Justin were making hand signs to each other on the platform before Haig attacked him with a knife. The trial previously heard emergency crews tried to save the 14-year-old at the station before he was taken to the Royal Hospital for Children, where he was pronounced dead. Haig denies murder and the trial before Judge Lord Clark continues tomorrow. Courtney Cameron, STV News at the High Court in Glasgow.
To other stories in the West, and a missing woman in England may have travelled to Ayrshire. Mary Monkman, who's 49, was last seen on Friday morning in her hometown of Kendal in Cumbria. Police inquiries suggest she may have travelled in her red Nissan Juke to the west bank of Loch Doon. Officers say concerns are growing for her welfare. A motorcyclist has died and 2 others were injured following a crash between a car and 2 motorbikes in Ayrshire. Emergency services were called to the road in the A719 between Crossroads and Galston on Saturday afternoon. A 59-year-old man died at the scene. Police are asking witnesses to come forward. A vision to accelerate the number of electric vehicle charging points in Scotland has been launched. The Scottish Government aims to have 6,000 charge points by 2026. The plan, which is reliant on significant private investment, comes as figures suggest the uptake of electric cars could be up to more than 16%. The initiative will benefit rural areas in particular, and also key tourist routes along the west coast of Scotland.
We want to double the number of public charging facilities, but working with the private sector, that can go even further.
Vehicle charging solutions can be used in rural areas or areas of high tourism, but the battery technology that we produce is a way of harnessing the energy so that we can provide charge points to the vehicles where the grid supply may not be sufficient to do so.
We've heard about Brendan Rodgers becoming Celtic manager. With more, here's Raman.
Thanks very much, John. Good evening to you all. He was the outstanding choice, the words of Celtic chairman Peter Lawwell, after Brendan Rodgers returned to the club as manager. The Northern Irishman was highly successful in his first spell at Partygate. Ronnie Charters looks back at the previous Rodgers reign.
He arrived with a fanfare. A lifelong Celtic fan, Brendan Rodgers became the club's new manager in the summer of 2016.
This is one of the great clubs of the world. It's an institution in its own right. So for me to come here, it's a huge honour and a privilege to be able to come and manage Glasgow Celtic.
A late winner in his first league game in charge saw Rodgers kick-start a domestic season to remember. On the European front, a humbling experience in the Champions League, including the club's heaviest ever European defeat, 7-0 at the hands of Barcelona, saw Celtic exit the group stages. But that didn't stop the domestic juggernaut. A League Cup and title secured before this famous Scottish Cup final win over Aberdeen crowned Celtic invincibles. In season number 2, the club failed to qualify for the Champions League, but that only strengthened their resolve on the home front. This 5-0 win over rivals Rangers delivering another league title, and that season, another treble for Rodgers. Season 18-19 began with similar success, the League Cup win making it 7 trophies out of 7 for the Celtic manager. But in February, that all changed.
Neil Lennon will make a sensational return to Celtic after Brendan Rodgers quit the club for Leicester City today.
If I was making this decision with my heart, then I'd be at Celtic for life. But it all happened very quickly. I was presented an opportunity that after nearly 3 years at Celtic, that I felt it was probably then the time to move on.
The Northern Irishman may have felt the timing was right, but the Celtic fans certainly didn't.
It was a surprise that he went, because I thought he was doing quite well here.
Why walk out in the club 10 weeks potentially before the end of the season when they could potentially win this treble?
But now, after 4 years away, Brendan is back. Back at the club he delivered huge success. The big question, can Rodgers' second spell be as successful as his first? Well, Rodgers will be paraded to the media as the new Celtic manager later this week. It's been confirmed that John Kennedy will be staying as his assistant, as will Gavin Strachan and Harry Kewell as first-team coaches. Believe it or not, the fixtures for the new season get released later at the end of this month before we are set to do it all over again. The big news once again from Celtic Park tonight, Brendan Rodgers is back as the club's new manager. Raman.
Ronnie at Celtic Park, thanks very much for that. Steve Clarke says there is more to come from his Scotland side as they target a victory against Georgia in the latest Euro qualifier tomorrow night. The Scots made it 3 wins from 3 games in their qualifying campaign after defeating Norway at the weekend. From the searing conditions in Oslo to the more familiar, cooler Scottish climate, Steve Clarke's squad were put through their paces at Lesser Hampden ahead of tomorrow's Euro qualifier against Georgia. And after the Scots' dramatic win over Norway, they go into the match full of confidence.
If you're doing well professionally, you feel good about yourself. So the players feel good. They're looking forward to another full house here at Hampden tomorrow. They're looking forward to putting on another good performance. We spoke after the March camp about capitalising on the home win against Spain. We managed to do that. We bring a feel-good factor on the back of those 2 results, but we know, and football's got a habit of biting you if you don't respect the game. So we have to respect our opponent, we respect the game, and we try to get another 3 points against Georgia.
In Oslo, the Scots showed another side to their game. They had to dig deep to get a result. They'll be aiming to maintain their 100% winning record tomorrow night.
I think we all just believe in ourselves, as a team. We all work hard together, but we believe in ourselves, but we know that we have to work hard to get the results. I think we're growing as a team, every time we meet up. But just as I said, off the pitch and on the pitch, we're just working hard. So, I feel like we're growing.
After a long season, these players are being called on for another big performance and go another step closer to next year's finals in Germany. And that, folks, is all your sport tonight. Tomorrow's sport comes live from Hampden ahead of that big match between Scotland and Georgia.
All right, thanks, Raman. Well, the temperature has dropped, but it's still rather warm. Here's Sean to put us in the picture.
Well, the rainfall radar, here's something we haven't used for a while because, of course, we've had very little rainfall around, but plenty of colour on it this morning. Some quite heavy bursts of rain in places, but that's drifted away northwards. But if we have a look at the amount of rainfall we had during last night and into this morning, the wettest spot down at the Botanics in Edinburgh, 35 millimetres of rain. Now, remember last week I was talking about some spots so far since the beginning of June have had about 1 or 2 millimetres of rain, so quite a bit of rainfall, certainly in comparison. Cumbernauld and Slamanan, just over 30 millimetres of rain. Now, when I give you these numbers, I often think, well, what does that actually look like? Well, Edinburgh, 35 millimetres. If you imagine a large hanging basket, about 40 centimetres wide, from that rainfall last night and today, it's had about 4.5 bottles of water, about that, 4.5 litres of water, which sounds quite a lot, but I think in the grand scheme of things for water storage, will it make a massive difference? We'll see towards the end of the week. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference because, of course, we're still using lots of water at this time of year, and there still will be some warm sunshine, but yes, more rainfall in the forecast this week. Let's have a look.
It's looking like a chilly one. Sponsors STV Weather.
Well, there's that rain we had earlier on today clearing away to the northwest Highlands just now. Here, sunshine and showers as we head through the evening. Still the risk of a few heavy showers, but most of them easing away in the next couple of hours, and then it's dry with clear spells overnight, and those temperatures staying probably around the mid-teens for many of us, 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, so quite a warm night to come. Now tomorrow weather will be going downhill. We're going to see more rain. However, the worst of the rain will stay to the east of us across lights of Fife, Edinburgh and also the borders, but we'll see some shower outbreaks of rain coming in across North Lanarkshire and South Lanarkshire, perhaps a few showers getting as far west as Ayrshire and also around Glasgow. The best of the sunshine across the Hebrides and also mainland Argyll, but here there will be some heavy showers, especially early on in the afternoon. Top temperatures 20 to 21, so in those sunny spells still feeling not too bad, but certainly not the 28s and 29s we had last week. However, temperatures on the rise later on the week. Sunshine and showers around on Wednesday. Some of those could be quite thundery towards northern parts of Argyll and also into the Highlands. And it is looking quite showery around Fort William and Lochaber as we head through the week. Friday night we will see some heavy rain coming through. That's the case for all of us as we head into the weekend here. We're 18, 22 degrees Celsius. Further south and east we go. We've got higher temperatures into the weekend. Once we get the heavy rain out of the way on Friday, sunshine and showers for the weekend and temperatures back into the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And just when we were getting used to all that sunshine too.
He's coming back next week. Sean said so. Pick him up if he doesn't. Good night.
Indeed, good night.